Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow Interviews, right here on WXOU Sports. My name is Giovanni Mosheri, Sports Media Director of WXOU, and with me today from Oakland University Volleyball, we've gotten a couple of interviews with her during games, or I should say after games during the season, but a little technical difficulties kept us from posting them, but we finally have Libby Gentile here on the GioMo Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry to break the news. Those post-games audio messed up in different ways both times.
That's okay.
So that
would happen.
Had to get you back here. I couldn't leave you high and dry like that.
No worries.
So I always like to start my interviews similar way. I need to know the foundation. I need to know the background of everybody in the world of sports. So for you growing up, was it always volleyball that you played, or was it other sports and you found it along the way? Kind of give me like the origin story of you in the world of sports.
Okay, well, I'm not the only one in my origin story. I'm an identical twin.
Right.
So, growing up, my twin played flag football.
Flag football?
Yeah, 9 years. And I was a cheerleader for a little bit. And then after that, I did dance. So, two very not volleyball sports.
Right.
And then in 7th grade, she tried out for the volleyball team. So I had gone to like all of her volleyball games, and I was like, that looks kind of fun. So I started playing in 8th grade.
In 8th grade? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Which is pretty late in terms of like I ask all my teammates when they start playing, it's like 5 or 6. And it's like, I was 14. So
yeah, usually like, well, I mean, I feel like the story of like trying a bunch of sports and then finding it is a lot more common than I was born with a volleyball in my hand, or a pair of goggles on my face, or whatever the sport may be.
It was no other sports, like sports though. I mean, I guess dance and cheerleading, those are kind of sports. But the level I was doing it was not sport.
Oh, you think it was more, you would call it more extracurricular?
It was like a hobby.
Hobby, okay.
Yeah, so
yeah, we're way down the list then.
Oh yeah, it was like really like menial stuff, but I was like, oh, that looks so fun, and so I went to tryouts, and I think I just made the team because I was tall. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess back then. Well, I mean, yeah, you were tall. I guess you were taller than everybody else back then.
Yeah, I was. I want to say I was taller than all of my classmates. Like,
well, that'll do it.
Pretty good size.
So then, once you got into volleyball, I mean, you made the team, and what about it was like? Was it like right away interesting to you, or is it just because you were playing with your sister, I'd assume, right?
Yeah, it was really just that we were doing something together, and she's my best friend, so just doing anything with her is always super fun. But I kind of just liked it was competitive. I didn't know I was competitive because I was not doing anything competitive prior. So like growing up, I have 3 older brothers, so everything was like a competition, but I didn't know like athletically that I was like that was kind of where my head was at.
So there's five children in the family, let's say?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that common in Blissfield, or?
Oh, well, I'm actually not from there. I grew up in Metro Detroit. I grew up Livonia. So
Livonia, okay.
We moved to Blissfield probably the 2nd semester of my junior year.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, talk about culture shock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, 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 very small town.
Yeah, and you're used to kind of the a little bit bigger. So what, I guess what with that was such a shock? Like, were you just like couldn't find anything to do around, or?
Yeah, there wasn't anything really to do, and just it was very. I don't know how to put this. It was very different than the school that I went to. Like there was a lot of kids at my school. I went to Blissfield. There's 2 hallways, so like literally only 2 hallways and the gym in the middle, and it was just like it was itty bitty. Everybody knew everybody. I went to high school and I didn't know any of my classmates.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like that was normal. And I got there and they already knew like my name, where I was from, what I do.
Yeah,
like
they find out.
They talk, and so I was like, oh, they already know me. That's awesome. Like I didn't even have to introduce myself, so it was a little weird.
Yeah, but ironically, the bigger the school, the bigger the crowd, the like you can really fly under the radar. But like, because I graduated with 750 students in my high school. I went to Dakota. Building was like 3,300 in total. So I mean, I don't know half the classmates, but like to be known right away, I'm sure it's a little creepy. I would say.
It was, and they were like, "Oh, those are the twins. Those are the twins." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is like." I heard all these rumors about myself.
Oh,
like
no.
there was one that I was like a 5-star basketball recruit. I was like, I wish that would be so cool, but no, I wasn't. So
maybe that might have just been the height.
Yeah, they were like, "Wow, she's big."
So then, So then with that, getting back now to the volleyball origin
Yeah.
story. Now you're playing with your sister a little bit, and the fire of competitiveness kind of awakens in you. And do you think that was more or less because of just the fact that you were playing something, or was it like volleyball specific that really brought that out of you?
I feel like that's more of a volleyball thing. I think if I played a different sport, I'd probably be pretty competitive. But just the nature of the game, it's so fast paced, and like you're always moving on to the next thing. So I just feel like you gotta, like, it was more, I like to execute at a high level. And for me, for a long time, it was like, I just want to be better than everybody else. So that, I don't know if that's volleyball specific, but
Yeah, you're just ready to like crack some skulls and
yeah. It's like, I want to see how hard I can hit the ball. For a long time, I didn't hit in the court. So
oh, you had trouble keeping it in bounds.
yeah, it's like 40 feet out of bounds.
Yeah, I'll ask about that a little more about the specifics of your position,
Yeah.
but I guess we'll keep it going here with the origin story. So
Yeah.
now, so in 8th grade, you start a little bit late, but do you think that you caught up pretty quick with the rest of the crowd, or like just kind
Yeah.
of picked up the sport quick?
I would say, I mean, in 8th grade, that was when my mom wanted us to play like a club. So we played on like a state level team, very low level team at Legacy, which is a fantastic volleyball club. But I was nowhere near good enough to make like a good team.
Sure.
So we just played like a state level team, and my sister and I both got like monumentally better that year.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like the first real year that someone was like sitting down with us and like, here's how we get better. Here's how to actually have a good arm swing. Here's like footwork patterns and that sort of thing. Whereas when we started, it was just middle school volleyball. It's like, just
Yeah.
get the ball over the net.
Yeah, and,
So-
and then you start to learn the mechanics and like why things are done this way.
And
Yeah.
just like learning that framework and then having a coach that could like explain the game. But it was really my freshman year when I felt like I was actually learning like how to win, how to compete, because I went to a new club. And that's the coach I played for the rest of my time.
Oh, wow.
But she is fantastic. Her name is Kylie. She's from Blissfield, and she played at Georgia, and she was like incredible there. And she is just like super wise about the game. So we had tried out, and I guess she noticed that we are more raw. We didn't really
Yeah.
have it going on yet. So she took us under her wing, and she taught us a lot.
And what does that do? I mean, at the very at the very sake of you guys have that individual attention, like how valuable is that?
It was unlike anything that we had before, because it was very much like group work, still learning the game, but like it wasn't individualized. And a lot of the time we heard from coaches that it was just like we were good, but they weren't really spending time with us. And that coach was the one who was like, I believe in you guys. You guys are going to go far. So she really wanted to like kind of enrich us and give us the extra time and like give us lessons and kind of just pour into us as a teacher.
Yeah, and us, just to keep everyone involved in the story, it's still you and your sister Abby,
Yes,
right?
me and Abby, yeah.
So, and I'm sure for the coach, it's like, oh, I mean, you coach one, you basically coach the other, kind of like sort of bang for your buck. Like the both of you guys are going to be like, on the same page, I'd imagine, right? So kind of talk to me about like playing with your sister. Cause I'm the middle of 3 boys, and me and my younger brother are a little bit closer. We played soccer like every other year on the same team. So I kind of understand it's a lot of fun to play with your siblings. So kind of tell me about how you guys played together and kind of how that, I'd imagine that nonverbal communication is huge.
Yeah, so for a while, she was an outside and I was a middle. So we'd be on the court a lot at the same time. As we got older, she transitioned to being a setter.
Okay.
So she was my setter.
All right.
And so we were always in at the same time. And so I don't know how normal siblings are, because I'm not really close with my other siblings,
Okay.
but Abby and I fought a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be like,
hey, from my perspective, yes, that's going to happen.
okay, because we were like cats and dogs. I mean, we did not get along for a long time. Like now, looking back, I'm very fond that I got to play with her. But I think at times I was like, oh man, I can't wait to go home. So I'm not with her. But we played beach together too.
Okay.
So that was a big part of like us coming together, and like you have your partner, and that's kind of, it's 2 people. So
yeah, 2-on-2 for beach, right?
and so we did fight a lot for that, but I think we kind of pushed each other in ways that I don't think other teammates have, because it was like, when you're with your sibling and you're like, I want to do this better than you. Like, hands down, I just want to do it better than you. So I would get better at something, and then she'd get better at it. And then she'd get better at something, I get better at it.
And
so
you guys would just keep climbing, trying to one up each other.
Yeah,
and
constantly.
And when you guys, let's say, like, you guys are in a game, you play, maybe you have a little bit, you butt heads a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
On the car ride home, like, do you guys kind of like turn off the volleyball, or is it kind of linger?
Oh no,
when you get back?
We were like chit chatting the whole way home, and my mom would be like, "Please shut up." Like, she'd be like, "I just sat in a gym for 8 hours, and you won't stop talking about volleyball."
So now getting into the transition from high school to college, I read a little bit about you and your sister's journey. You guys originally wanted to go to Jacksonville and play beach volleyball and indoor together, but that didn't quite work out. So kind of, I mean, without, not saying like, oh, what was wrong with Jacksonville?
Yeah.
But kind of walk me through that story. You guys both planning on playing in college together, and it didn't end up happening. So like, kind of walk me through that. How tough was that?
Yeah, it was a very tough decision. So, we committed at the beginning of our sophomore year of high school.
Oh, it's early.
Yeah, the recruiting rules were a lot different. And so for our class, everybody who was good was done with recruiting by sophomore year.
Oh, wow.
So if they were like really good, not saying I'm really good, but that was like,
that's what it is. What it is.
So there was a lot of recruiting. And so I was a middle, and that's a little more, I think, heavily recruited because not everybody is. And being a pin when you grow up, like, kind of everybody's a pin. So you got to be like special to get recruited as a pin. So I talked to a lot more schools than she did, but I think it was just the nature of our positions being different. Like if everybody's a pin, then obviously you're going to talk to like a couple less schools, right? Because there's more to pick from. But so we had decided on Jacksonville because we wanted to play together. A week before that, we visited here. Okay. And I loved it. My grandma used to work here. She worked at Meadowbrook. All right. And, so we came here all the time growing up, and I loved it, but there just wasn't enough scholarship to allocate. And so our family needed that money. Like, we can't just go to college. Right. That's not in the budget. So we had a lot of offers with money for both of us. So we were kind of looking at those schools. Decided on Jacksonville, and I personally hate beach. So that was like part of the decision why I didn't want to go there. I just can't, like, there's sand in all the places you don't want sand. Like, I sweat a lot. And
so it's going to stay with you. Yeah. It's like glitter. It'll stay.
It's awful. I only like playing in it if it's like 60 degrees. Like, it's got to be like chilly. Yeah. But, so we go through high school, we're like committed, whatever. And then COVID hit, and some family issues, I wanted to stay closer to home. Sure. And I made the decision on my own without telling Abby. Uh-oh. And that was, I didn't want to influence her in any way because I wanted her to feel like she could be independent too. Yeah. And so I talked to my club coach, and she was like, yes, this is how you do it. Like, I had already signed. So I was basically a transfer at that point. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I had to go through, like, what's it called? Voiding my NLI? NIL? National NLI. Okay. And that was a whole process. And by the time that had cleared, some things didn't pan out for Abby at Jacksonville. So she decided to take a gap year. But as like the week after, like the same week that I got my thing voided, I got a call from Oakland, and the previous coaching staff was like, hey, do you want to come here? We have money for you. I was like, yes. Yeah. So then sign me up. Yeah, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. So, and then to be and to go your separate ways, let's say, from your sister, from being together and playing together the whole time, I mean, that's got to be tough too, wouldn't you say? Yeah, it's bittersweet. So like I said, she took her gap year, and she went to a smaller school in Sylvania, Ohio. It's Lourdes. Okay. But she's since transferred from there. But it was hard because I'd never played without her. Right. And so freshman year was weird because I was like, who am I as a volleyball player? I'm not like one of the twins. I have to be my own person. Yeah, and who is this setter over here? Yeah, like who are these people? I don't have my best friend. You're not Abby. Right. So it was definitely different than what I was used to because I'd never played without her. Yeah. But we kind of both adjusted, and she came to a lot of our games, and I've gone to some of hers. Our schedule doesn't really allow it, but this season's at the same time. Yeah, and I've watched a lot of her games, but there we go. So it's definitely been different. But when we go home on break and we get to play, it's like so fun.
So you guys are still able to play for fun now?
Yeah.
Because I always wonder that with the athletes, like you spend so much time with whatever your sport is. Like, are you ever able to play for fun anymore?
Oh yeah. Well, when we go home, there's like open gyms and stuff, and
Yeah.
we can go back to our old club and play. And playing with her now, like that we both matured, is just very different. Like,
Yeah, it's like playing with a new person.
it's actually
I imagine.
enjoyable.
Oh, in a good way. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And now getting into what's something that's not so great. Your freshman year here at Oakland. I was reading about that. I'll spare some of the details because I'm a bit squeamish, but you had a pretty bad injury your freshman year, 3 games into the season, and we'll say your leg was out of commission. Like,
Yeah, very much.
very out of commission. And was reading about your story and kind of coming back from that, but kind of tell the people, what happened in as squeamish friendly detail as you can.
Okay,
And
I'll do
kinda
my best.
And going through rehab and coming back from that, because it's a great story and it's not easy to do. So kind of tell us all about it.
Yeah, so like you said, 3rd game of the year. Previous to I'd been playing, that was that was like my goal coming to college, was to obviously start. That's everybody's goal.
Yeah.
But I was very blessed that I got that opportunity. Then 3rd game in, I landed in such a way that took me out of volleyball for a couple of years. And that at that point, my whole identity was in volleyball.
Right.
And I was crushed. Like I knew as soon as I went down that was like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going back in anytime soon. And it's not funny, but it's funny. It was
Funny to you.
Yes, sure. Jordan, our trainer,
Mm-hmm.
it was her, like, literally her first week with us. So I hadn't gotten to know her very well, and she's, like, trying to peel me off the court. I'm like, I can't walk. And she's like, you're going to walk. So we had gone to the hospital. We didn't really find anything on the x-ray, so she sent me home, full leg brace, like the thigh to ankle nonsense.
It's like this steel case. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got my MRI a couple days later, had a lot of tearing, had some bad bone bruises.
Yeah. If you guys want the details, there's a little bit more on goldengrizzlies.com. You got a story written about it. It was called, forgive me, do you remember what it was called?
I have no idea.
Look it up, Libby Gentile on goldengrizzlies.com. You can find a story through her eyes.
Yeah, but so then MRI comes back. It's obviously not great news.
Yeah.
And the expected time to come back, I think, is like 6 to 12 months. But it had occurred in the spring because the COVID season had, like, it moved from the fall to the spring.
Yeah.
So not only did I have to sit for that season, but I also had to sit for the fall because I just didn't recover in time.
Just the way the timing worked. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started rehab like right away because right before surgery you have to be able to get your legs straight, like
Okay.
0 degrees straight.
Right.
And that is like a lot harder than I ever thought it would be. Like you would never think that you're gonna have trouble like just laying your leg down, but it was a lot.
Given the damage, yeah.
Yeah, and that was February 8th that I had torn everything, and then March 2nd was when I had my surgery. And at that point I had come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to be playing. But it was a long journey. Like I found my faith and my identity in Christ, because I had been going to church, and I was like, I'm never going to feel fulfilled by playing sports and performance and like that sort of thing, because my life is so much longer than just 4 years, as much as I love volleyball.
Of course, yeah.
And
that goes with any athlete. Like the window's only so much. They're
Right.
only so big.
And we're forced to deal with it after 4 years, but nobody tells you what to do if it happens a week into your season.
Yeah.
So it was kind of trial and error, but I was going to church a lot, and there was my favorite Bible verse ever is Psalm 35. And it's weeping endures in the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Shout out to Psalms 35.
Yeah. And so that was just like what I had all the time in my head. I had it on like my mirror. I had it on my phone. I was like, it's going to happen. It's just going to take time. So I got the surgery. Everything was fine. They actually sent me home because it was winter and I kept slipping on the ice.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're like, get out of here. So I went home. And then I had a blood clot from sitting on the couch apparently too much. And So that was another setback. I wasn't allowed to do rehab for a couple weeks because of
Really?
that, because they didn't want the clot to break off.
I see. Yeah.
And it was like that. Sorry, you're squeamish, but it was in my calf. So
Sure.
a lot of like exercises that I was doing, it could have irritated it. So
Yeah.
I was like an old woman. I was on blood thinners. I just had knee surgery. It's like, oh my gosh, give me a break. But Jordan worked with me all summer long, and she just did not give up on me. And she made it so that I couldn't quit, even when it was really hard, because there are days when you go into rehab and you're like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And you're just like bound and determined to just not do it. But she's more hard-headed than I was.
Yeah.
So, but for the better. I mean, she was with me the whole time. She was available whenever I needed her. And that kind of has played into our bond and our relationship, because like I know that she's always has my best interest. Yeah. So, but I had failed my return to play tests. I came back, I failed 2 of them, and technically never passed the 3rd.
Oh.
But they were like, as long as you have normal sport function, then you can return.
Okay.
So I was back soon enough in a brace, and that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, so from Jordan being there the first week and not knowing her, you got to know her pretty good, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and that's always something, because, I mean, for me, like, I swam for 4 years, and that was kind of the extent of my sports, like, soccer, football, track here and there, but, like, I never, like, got to at least the college level, and, luckily didn't have to experience an injury. So hearing the story of rehab and the difficulties of it, for those who listen to a lot of athletes, it could be a cliche story, but, I mean, it is always with you. The leg is always hurting, and to be motivated to kind of push through it to get yourself better, it's very difficult, and it's always a triumphant story when they return, when athletes return.
Yeah.
So when you did end up returning, and now you're back, now you're playing and you're on the blacktop, and kind of what did that return feel like after all that rehab?
Oh, it's a lot of emotions. So our coaching staff had left, and Krista and Kyle came in that spring, and that was the first time I was going to be competing again.
Yeah.
So that doing that by itself was already like very high emotions. Like I was very nervous, very anxiety filled, just wasn't myself. And I was still putting a lot of pressure on performance. Like a lot of my self-worth was based on performance. And
more the results, let's say.
Yeah. So that, if you have that, that's never rewarding in any way.
Yeah.
And you just end up feeling junky if you don't do well. So kind of struggle with that, but I used our sports psych here, and that was very helpful, and he comes into the story later when I was trying to get out of my brace. But yeah, it was, I don't know, a lot of emotions.
It was heavy, I'm sure. Yeah. And playing with the knee brace, I mean, how limiting is that?
So I don't think the knee brace does anything, which is kind of why I'm out of it also, because I had a friend, a girl, an alum, Evelyn, she tore her ACL in a brace. So I'm not sure that it really does anything. Because that's the kind of the perspective I went in with it. Sure. I was like, I'm getting out of this thing because it's not really doing anything anyway.
Yeah, you've seen and heard like this. It won't help either way. From your eyes. Yeah. And
they fit you for it at probably like 4 months after surgery. They fit you for the like return to play brace. I had no muscle on my leg, so like from then on, it was too small. Like the rest of the time, and it was super uncomfortable because this leg. I used to be very proud of my quads.
Sure.
But nobody also tells you that when you get hurt, you lose all of your muscle. And I had this like disgustingly skinny leg, like from my calf up, it was just straight.
Just too thick.
Yes. And so then at like being in the brace, it was just uncomfortable because it didn't fit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really do anything. Like technically it prevents you from hyperextending.
Yeah. Which
is like, I think the first way that you tear your ACL. But, it's just uncomfortable. Really,
just not fun. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So now I want to get into a little bit more of the volleyball and like through your eyes of it. So you do a whole lot of the hitting. On the team there. So what's something about your position and about the way you have to hit it that like somebody in the audience or somebody covering it on the radio wouldn't quite understand about the position? Like what's something that I wouldn't know about it just from watching?
So playing on the right side is a lot different than playing on the left side of the court because I'm right-handed.
Yeah.
So timing and connection with the setter is like huge. It's huge for all hitters, but
Yeah.
on the right side, you being right-handed, you have to wait for the ball to cross your body, and the timing of how you swing, where you swing, and like even when you start your footwork, it all plays into if it pans out or not, if it's successful. So
And all that, I'm sure, just comes with a disgusting amount of reps, I would imagine.
yeah.
And not only just with you and like we'll say the starting center, but everyone who's going to potentially be giving it to you, like everyone's got to be on that timing, right?
Yeah, and we run a quicker tempo to the pins, so we run a much flatter ball than a lot of teams do, which works for me because I used to be a middle, and that's a fast tempo ball. So for me, it's just see ball, hit ball, but it's a quicker tempo. So that's like when there's a new setter, it's just like you have to just rep it out.
Yeah.
So it takes some time, but it eventually works out. I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to go through it to get to the end.
And I'm sure like during practice, like you're just like, come on, can you just hit it sooner? Like, 'cause I'm sure practicing is a little, could be frustrating, but once you actually, get it going, then I'm sure it just feels great to like finally have that rhythm and feel like you guys are in control of the game, I'd imagine. Right?
Yeah, that once you establish that connection, it just does not go away. Like the beginning of the season, I was hitting off of Sarah, and she was a new setter, and we got it figured out. And then halfway through, I was hitting off Rachel again, and I hit off Rachel last year, so it was like nothing had ever changed. Like I already knew what balls she was going to be like risky with, and like chuck it back to me, or like I know that if she gets closer to me, what she's gonna do. Like just that nonverbal kind of expectation of what she's gonna do versus what I'm gonna do, and how we're gonna prepare to succeed ultimately.
And then when you guys are on the court, like with all that nonverbal, I mean, you guys are very verbal also, but is there like how often would you say there's a ball coming your way and you didn't expect it and you just have to kind of go with it? Does that happen often?
Only on off block defense. That's kind of my red flag. I'm not great at it. But essentially when their right side is attacking and I have to pull off the net, if there's like a weird touch on the block, those ones are the ones that mess me up. Because it's like you can't predict where it's going.
Right, and it's you just have to see it and go, and and even it just when I play volleyball, like I got a hard time, like and just kind of like to put in perspective, like volleyball looks nice when you watch it, but like when you play it and you really get into it, it's the smallest things. This goes with any sport, but it's the smallest things that can really mess it up, especially when you're basically constantly fighting against gravity in volleyball.
Pretty much,
It's gonna come down.
Yeah,
eventually.
It has to.
Yeah. So I always find that to be super interesting about volleyball, and makes it just so suspenseful because you have someone has to do something about it, and a decision has to be made. And I'm kind of going on why I enjoy watching you guys play volleyball.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy watching basketball, right? But like for example, you can just dribble the ball. Like you don't have to do anything. Volleyball is very different because you every single play, if you're involved. Like you have to move to the ball. You if you're passing, you got to be ready to actually move your feet, get stopped, and deliver to the setter so that we can run an offense.
Yeah.
Like everybody has to be doing their job, and that's why it's such a team sport, but also why it's so fun.
Yeah, it's every play is a fire drill.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
So when you're getting kind of into the plays, and I saw when I was reading the story about the game that you got hurt in, the score of that set was what, 38-36?
Oh, it was unreal.
So when you guys are getting up to that, like you're into the 20s, and then you're even into the 30s, like how much more intense are those win by 2 situations?
Yeah, so we do a lot of those in practice. Obviously, it's very different when there's something on the line.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of we talk to our sports psych very frequently about kind of pressure and how to perform under pressure. And I think especially this year, our team did a great job of being prepared to after 20, you got to put your foot on the gas.
Yeah.
You just got to play the game. But also when you are in that win by 2 situation, how you can execute at a high enough level so that you're not, you always want to be the one ahead.
Right.
So even if you do get in a win by 2 situation, you want to be the one that's up so that you're not oh man, we really have to.
Yeah,
like,
you're like up against like the edge of the cliff, and yeah.
which is how our game against Northern Kentucky was, which was absolutely like that was my favorite game ever, probably, because it was just so like it came down to the wire, every ball.
Every ball.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of curious because I come to the games when I can. If I'm not working them, usually I try to be there and be as loud as I can.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, because I didn't watch a whole lot of volleyball. Like I didn't quite like go and watch it in high school and stuff. So I'm a little bit new to the cheering aspect of it. So I need your advice. I need your perspective on how a home crowd, how a student section should be cheering in a game. Like is it ever distracting? Like if I'm like yelping at the wrong time, like what's it like for you?
I think by now, like we're all old enough where it's like in high school, sometimes you get chirped, like I always got the overrated chants. I know probably all my teammates got all the overrated chants. You make one error and it's like, now apparently I suck. But we do a lot of like work under pressure. It's always very loud in the gyms we play in, like club volleyball, there's always a whistle going, there's always teams all around you.
Yeah.
So the noise doesn't necessarily bother us to generalize for our team. But a home crowd, like if that is loud and involved, like that is the best environment to play in. Even if you're in another gym and it's packed out, it's like, oh man, this is fun. Like, there's a lot of people here. Like it just feels like it almost, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, it is more fun though.
Okay, so in terms of me and all of you guys that need to get to the arena, especially for the spring season, it's kind of free reign.
Oh
in
yeah,
terms
do
of
what
the
you
shout.
want.
Like don't you guys will be fine if I'm screaming during the opposite serve and stuff.
Oh yeah, that does not bother us. Just don't scream when we're serving.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only time I would say don't do that. But other than that, it's free reign. I mean, just
let them have it.
Yeah.
So now getting into this spring season, and there's a couple of fall sports here. They do also have a spring season, but it's a little bit to the background after the Horizon League season. So basically, for me, to put bluntly, what's the point of a spring season?
Stay hot for the fall.
So is it that important to kind of stay, to stay hot in that way, to kind of have a second, we'll call it miniature season? Like, is it that makes that big of a difference?
It's a couple reasons. One, we really want to win the league.
Yeah.
And to do that, we have to keep training. And I think the best way to kind of get better, obviously, is competing against other teams. Luckily for us, our spring schedule looks pretty good. I mean, we're going to be playing some pretty competitive games, especially the ones that are here.
A lot of which are here.
Yeah. Which is so exciting. We haven't really had a lot of like out of season home games. So that's always super exciting when we get to do that. But just kind of also learning how to play without the seniors. For me, I played my whole career with Patty, Kennedy, Anna, and Sarah just came in this year, but they all play very big roles on our team. So it's for us right now, we're kind of finding our way. And it's just who's going to be a leader, who's going to fill those roles. And it just sets us up nicely for the fall, so that when the freshmen come in, we're like, this is our identity, this is who we are.
Yeah, and this is where you guys are going to fit in.
Yeah.
So now is the time where you're going to find out, basically, about what you guys are going to be doing.
Yeah.
And those games will be they start on March 9th, Saturday at 11 a.m. at the arena against Davenport, and then Saturday the 23rd, three games, Central Michigan, Ferris State, and Bowling Green in the arena. So now there's no excuse, because you heard when the dates are. Saturdays during March are spring volleyball.
That's right.
So be sure to get down to the arena, and that's all I got for you, Libby. Thank you so much for coming out to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, had to make sure to get you back here. Had to make sure that, we didn't do 2 post-game interviews for nothing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry again about that.
That's okay.
But you guys, thank you so much for listening to the GioMoShow Interviews. Be sure to find more on WXOU Sports on YouTube. Subscribe for more interviews like these, for highlights, for game broadcasts, for other sports shows here from your favorite college radio station. From Giovanni Moscieri on the GioMo Show, we'll see you live Monday at noon on the GioMo Show.